everybody. It is Fabrizio Aiello. Thanks for joining. Hey, Midnight Mausoleum. How's it going? So tonight, I'm actually going to be doing some pages from Horace H. Hoover. I've never actually done this before. I've always inked on stream, but I've never actually drawn just because it's pretty difficult sometimes. 1 second here. Alrighty. Okay, let's see. So just so you know my process, what I normally do is I'll do thumbnails for the pages. And once I have a pretty good idea of what I need to show on the page, and it doesn't even have to be exact. So, you know, I might do a thumbnail with, I don't know, 4 panels on it. I just need like the summary of action for the page. And then once I have that and I go to the large pages, what I'll do is just take that summary of action and kind of relay it out again. Once you have 11 by 17 page in front of you, it's a very different story. So, you know, adding more panels is generally a good thing. I'm a big fan of sort of the very old school comics where there's more dense storytelling. So, like, for example, this page here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panels, which is on the higher end for sure. That doesn't mean you don't do splash pages and 3-panel pages, but I think a mix is actually really, really nice. It keeps the pacing where you need it to be. So once I get the thumbnails done, I relay it out on the 11 by 17. And then what I'll do is I'll get, hopefully you can see this. You can see sort of the outline and the position and sort of the character. And then I'll knock it back with a kneaded eraser. So I can just see like a silhouette. And then I go in and sort of do the final pencils, which is what I'm doing currently. And since I'm left-handed, I have to do left or right to left. If not, this page would be a giant smudge mark. Oh, hey, Blue Teddy Narrations. How's it going? It is something special. As soon as I know I'm supposed to stream, about 10 minutes before I start, I feel a nap coming on. And I don't know if it's like a Pavlov's dog kind of thing, but streaming equates to napping for some reason now. All right. So let's see here. So just to kind of go over the page, we have the Bookbug, and he's kind of looking up at a giant, and we'll meet him in issue 3. I'll leave his name for another time. He's sort of surprised by him. Then we have Horace, or what we'll see as Horace, sort of pleading with the Bookbug. The giant kind of responds, Bookbug, and then this panel here, and this will get fleshed out as the evening goes, is the Bookbug, that giant, and Horace. This is probably the most interesting panel on the page because we have a really distinct foreground, middle ground, and background. We have 3 very different size shapes. So variation of character and shapes and compositions is really important. So I think this page is successful, you know, as far as the initial approach. We will see if the outcome is as successful, but you at least want to start somewhere. All right, so let's see here. So we have a giant, and also what I'll do is once I have roughly the outline of what I'm going for, I don't want to do too much shading at this point because that can kind of get in the way. So I really just want to I want to get form down first. I want to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be, proportions, etc., etc. And then once I'm happy with that, I double check my light source is where I want it to be. Because sometimes you can be a little more artistic with the light sources. You don't have to be quite as slavish to the light source as some people imagine. So I double check the light source. For this example, I always actually draw the light source in here. It's coming from the top left. Then I'll actually go in and do the blacks. So that I'll spot my blacks once I get that light source in. Then once I'm happy with all the blacks, then I'll go in and sort of do the finer detail, the textures, just that tertiary level of detail. So for this particular panel right now, I'm in the spotting blacks phase. That doesn't mean you can't go back and forth, phase to phase or racing. There are plenty of times where I've finished a page and then gone back and redone a whole panel. The only thing really keeping you from doing that is the quality of the paper. If it can take the erasing and the redrawing without completely shredding, then I will do as many times as I need to for that. This particular paper is Strathmore 200, which is actually the cheaper Strathmore paper, but the thing about it is this actually takes pencil really well. You can erase it a bunch of times and it still holds together, but it's not great for inking. So what I do is I'll do these pencils on the Strathmore, and then I will scan it in, print out a blue line on Eon boards, which are amazing for inking. They're just, especially for brushes, the brushes just glide. A lot of times I will draw off the panel too, to a certain point, just because if you don't draw all the way through, sometimes you'll cut appendages short, or you're not really taking into account the full length of limbs sometimes. So I will draw all the way out, and then once I have that established, I'll go ahead and just erase the panel. I do break panel borders, and if there's somebody out there who noticed, I only break panel borders certain times. I set some rules up, and I make sure I try to adhere to them. So can't have anybody breaking a panel border. Only certain characters will break panel borders. And we will figure that out later. And by later, I mean on my deathbed. Pretty sure. So we have the Bookbug from issue 2. Drawing these tiny little characters like this is tough, but it's actually really important to be able to do this. If not, all your characters essentially are medium shots, and things can kind of start to look dull. So you need to be able to do these really small drawings. And that's where sketch cards really helped me out a lot. Blue Teddy narrations. I'm going to have to go back and reread things to figure out which characters break panel borders now. Yeah, I put a lot of little things like that in, and I kind of wait to see if anybody noticed. Again, I don't know when I'll actually say who breaks borders and when, but there's always a reason. I try to make sure I don't do anything completely, arbitrarily. Hey, John, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Monday nights are so sleepy. So for this panel, there's going to be dialogue, so I take that into account. There's quite a bit of space here for the Bookbug to talk, and then I have enough area above the giant as well. So I have the outlines done. I have the blacks for the most part that I think I want. Again, I can always come back later on and add more blacks. Maybe the hair, a little more black in the hair. They are in caves underground, but it's not completely black because there's light being emitted from stones and things like that are actually emitting a light. I will say this, Midnight Mausoleum, the one thing that's unfortunate about streaming for me is I can't listen to something else while I'm working. So I have to listen to myself. I don't know if that's a good thing. I would much rather be watching an old movie. Thing about these panels too is something that kind of hurts thinking about is panel this size, depending on the dialogue you have, will probably take 2 seconds to read before the reader moves on to the next panel. So you could spend half hour on one panel, but a reader's going to spend maybe a second or two, depending on the amount of dialogue in it. Hopefully what they do is come back later and actually look at the artwork. I know that's what I used to do. I mean, it's still what I do. I'll read the book and then I'll go back, kind of page through the art. So for the Bookbug, I'm actually gonna black out his lower legs here. What that does is it signals a plane change abruptly. So that way it gives him a little more form. And especially since he's so small, big plane changes like that can be pretty important. Teddy narrations, yes, but this way you're providing content for us to watch whilst drawing. Thank you for your service. Well, thanks for joining me. I mean, I'm glad when people show up, then I don't feel like I'm talking to myself. And honestly, if anybody has any questions about Horace or my tools or anything, actually, yeah, let me go over the tools real quick. So this is my very standard, this is my main tool. It's just a lead holder. This is HB lead, which I use for everything. A lot of people will use different lead not thicknesses, hardnesses. Hardnesses? I don't know. Density? Anyway. But I just use HB for everything. And if I need a light pencil, I just use a light touch. And then, like I said, I'll go in and take a kneaded eraser and just knock it back so you can just see the silhouette of it. I have a couple of pencils. This is just an eraser, but it's kind of a finer point to it. I have a larger one and a bunch of refills for this. Classic kneaded eraser. It works as a toy and an eraser. I mean, how much more do you want? And a Stadler. For my, for my rulers, I cannot live without this ruler. I've bought these rulers, I don't know, for 20 years. I break them, I cut them. I use these for everything. And this, I probably won't be using this on this page because there's really no architecture, but it's a parallel ruler. And this is an antique. So I picked it up. It's so nice. They make plastic ones with like rollers on them and stuff, but I mean, look how cool this is. And coffee. That's my last tool. Alrighty, so this is looking good. I got the blacks in. I'll probably go back and do like real fine detail later on. Again, I'm drawing right to left because I'm left-handed and I would ruin it. So this is a close-up of the Bookbug, and I already have the face structure in. So at this point, it's spotting the blacks and fixing any of the structure that I might have messed up earlier. So again, for this, the light source is right here. Oh, hey, Reverend Saber. How's it going? This is some in progress Horace H. Hoover pages, never before seen from the vault. So we have Horace H. Hoover here. So we have the light source here. And I already have his books kind of roughed out. So at this point, I just want to make sure everything is aligned before I go ahead and spot the blacks. The Bookbug has pretty intricate costume just because it's paper, which is a little tricky to draw sometimes to make it still look like paper. Coloring definitely helps for that. Oh, thanks, Blue Tay Narrations. I appreciate it. Have a good evening. Yeah, so his costume's pretty intense because it's just wrapped paper with these threads keeping everything together. And depending on how close the viewer is to the particular drawing, sort of dictates how many of these threads we actually see. And then the level above, I should say, that is the language on the paper. So I always fill it with words and dialogue and symbols, because these are actual pages of actual books that he's using. Something that I do is the characters, they're not going to look the same, but you really just want to make sure they have one feature that is so different than everybody else that even if, you know, from a distance, from far away, you can tell that that's the Bookbug. And for me, obviously it's the books, you know, all over his body. But if the Bookbug was naked, which is not a pleasant thought, if the Bookbug was naked, you could still tell it was him just by his hair parted down the center with a little curlicues. So I really try to keep that going. John, I love the Bookbug. What a great original creation. Thank you. Yeah, he's so fun. He's fun to draw. He's fun to write. We definitely learn a bit more about the Bookbug in issue 3, which I think will be really interesting. He had a very normal suburban life. No, I'm just kidding. It'd be really funny if somebody, like out in the wild, saw somebody that looked like, you know, a character that I created, like the Bookbug, with a hair like this. That would make me happy. I'd be frightened a little bit, but it would be pretty cool. If anybody does see anybody, snap a photo. So we have the light from the top right, which means, you know, we have the book here, we have the cover. This is going to be in dark. It's not going to be completely black because we have pages. So you want to show that they catch a little bit of light. That way, you know, it's just not a solid black shape. Then we have his ear, casting little mini shadows. Then we have his very round chin. But this is not, again, this isn't 100% black. I don't do 100% black too often. I like a little bit of space in my lines. More grays than blacks. That way, when I do use black, it's pretty intense. All right, so his chin here would cast a shadow, and I changed the angle just a tiny bit. That way, you actually see the plane change, because this is paper. So these are, we'll say, 2 pieces of paper overlapped, and a little bit of direction change in those lines give it a little bit of differentiation between each other. And then his whole head, it really is going to be casting a shadow on this book here. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. Probably going to go darker though. And whenever you're doing these hatching lines for shadow, you want to make sure they actually follow the direction of the object itself. Form follows function. I love what creators are not fun to draw, or what characters. It's not that they're not fun to draw, they can be tough. Like they're so detailed or they're so complex that it kind of sucks the joy out of it. Horace, I mean, he's fun to draw now, but in the beginning, having to do a cylinder like that in perspective over and over and over again without using any guides or anything was tough in the beginning. It was really tough. Not so tough that I obviously abandoned the character, but that was difficult, and that could get pretty frustrating sometimes. Although now it's pretty easy for me. Yeah, I try to, whenever I'm designing characters, to come up with a character that is interesting to draw. I think most people do that though. But sometimes you don't know what you're getting yourself into. That's all. Like whenever I decided to do the House of Books, I'm like, that sounds like an awesome idea. And then I realized I have to draw these thousands of books, hundreds, over the course of a couple issues. So that kind of kicked me. So I think we're pretty good. Well, now you know what? I want to cast a shadow from his nose down and his lip. I really want to have some direction. He's got a big bulbous nose. So we have his eyelid, and then we have the supplementary eyelid, the eye bag. So for this panel here, I don't have a background, which that is sort of a, I'm not going to call it an art, but once you kind of understand when to have backgrounds and when not, that's a big light bulb moment for sure. Because at first you want to drop backgrounds out as much as possible so you don't have to actually do them. And some people do that, don't get me wrong. And sometimes those work, I guess. I tend to draw all of my backgrounds all the time until I realized if you have a panel like this and then he's saying something and then you have a background that gets covered up by dialogue in the Bookbug, it's not going to look great. It'll detract from the panel. So depending on how much room is in the panel, what's going on, it really dictates whether or not you finish out the background or not. A lot of times action is a good time to drop it out, depending on the action, obviously. But dialogue on these close-ups for sure. So I think we're good on that. Move over here. Oh, I didn't show this. So this is my lead pointer. These are a lifesaver. The thing about these things, little did I know that they get dull. So I had one for years and I kept on breaking the tip of my lead. And I'm like, that's it. I give up. I don't know what's going on. I just bought a new one. I'm like, oh, they dull because they're blades. For some strange reason, it never clicked in my head. Don't laugh. It happens. So now I have a few backups. So here we have another panel of the Bookbug. And something you also should try to do sometimes is have hands in panels. If it's just a lot of heads, it can look nice, you know, if you're doing nice drawings, if there's a lot of dramatic lighting, you know, if the dialogue is keeping people interested, it's not a problem at all. But hands can really add a lot to a panel. So for this, I just have his hand kind of sneaking in. We always look at, you know, heads and hands. So any way you can use it. So yeah, at any stage, like if you find something's wrong, redraw it. The ear wasn't quite in perspective. So I just wanted to redraw that. Regarding light, you definitely want to make sure that you adhere to it. So in this scene, light's coming basically from the back of the right, from the right. So just to remind myself, I draw a little triangle up there. That way I don't get too far. And I'm drawing shadows on the complete wrong side of the body or face. Your art kind of reminds me of Guy Davis. Guy Davis. I'm not. I'm blanking on that. Guy Davis. Yeah, I don't think I know Guy Davis unless I'm totally just blanking on that. But regarding the, in that you're both modern and old-fashioned at the same time, yeah, it's interesting. Even my goal really was to look like John Buscema or Ron Frenz or somebody, which is old-fashioned. People really definitely consider that to be old-fashioned now. But even when you set out for that goal, you can't help but have like your own unique take on it. So even if your intention is to really fit into that old genre, you always bring yourself into it. And I think that's for anything, whether it's writing, like for you, John, or coloring or lettering. I'm sure it's the same for music too. Like, I really want to sound like Black Sabbath. I'm like, well, you don't. You sound like, you can hear an influence of Black Sabbath, but even if you want to sound like them, you're not going to. I think it's because I have a lot of illustration, like non-comic book illustration under my belt, and that seemed to work its way into the comic book stuff, which admittedly takes longer for me to draw. But as long as the outcome is what you're looking for, I think that's the goal. Does the art do what you want it to in the end? If it takes a little longer, I think that's okay. As long as you are creating books. There's an interview I heard with Brian Boland, and when he was doing Killing Joke, he said, he's like, I knew that this was going to be my magnum opus. So he took time. He did it to the degree, like his best work ever. I thought it was really interesting. I didn't know you would know that. Like you're working on the best thing that you will ever work on. So it was interesting when he said that. But because of that, he gave it the time that it needed to be as good as it was. Guy Davis drew Sandman, Mystery Theater for DC, and then BPRD for Dark Horse. I mean, it's been a long time since I read Sandman. I guess I don't. Yeah, I mean, I know Sandman for sure. But I guess I was unaware of his art, or his name, I should say. I'll have to check that out a little more. Yeah, the Sandman art was interesting. little cartoony, with like glimpses of realism. If it's the Sandman run that I'm thinking of, at least. All right, so I'm spotting little blacks since the lights on the on the right. The sides of these books are all going to get this dark treatment, but not go all the way to black. His hair is black hair or dark hair, so that's always going to be dark. Got some shadow under the nose. Crazy eyebrows. I love crazy eyebrows. I don't know why. I don't know if this is just so fun to draw. I don't know what crazy eyebrows say about a person. That like they're throwing caution to the wind regarding their personal grooming. Like, listen, I don't have time to trim my eyebrows. I have evil plots that are happening right now. I gotta check in with all of my world domination stuff. I can't trim my eyebrows. Come on. So this drawing of Bookbug is a little smaller, so you don't want to get too fussy, because this will get shrunk down a lot. So you do want to make sure you get the darks in the right location. Oh, hey, how's it going? I'm sorry, your name was Diana, I believe. My flatter for the book, which I haven't sent you anything in a while because I haven't been inking. I've been drawing and doing some other things. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, with the Bookbug, I also wanted to create something that people, if they wanted to spend a lot of time on, they could really look at all the paper wrapped around them and potentially some writing. Not to say that all the writing is real. I don't want people to go nuts on it, but I love putting Easter eggs. So there's occasionally you'll find a symbol or some lettering that actually means something. Oops, that was wrong. I like watching how you ink in the page. Thank you. Yeah, I did an ink stream the other day, but I wanted to try penciling just because it's not something I ever did, and I never really talked about the process before. Okay, so for this one, we got definitely, so these books are definitely going to cast a shadow. I have to draw to the edge here. That's weird. So they'll cast a shadow down. And again, I'm changing the plane a little bit so it looks like the shadow is going over different pieces of paper that are slightly on a different plane. I'm good. Issue 2 is out, and I'm excited for issues 3, 4, and 5. Really some fun stories planned, some really interesting characters and locations, along with a few stories that are a little more serious or a little, I don't know, they have some heart to them, which I'm a big fan of as well. So lots of different things planned. So this is actually more of like a tertiary detail here, but I really wanted to show form on that because before it was just showing pretty flat. So sometimes you have to really like gin up the texture and follow the form a bit, essentially to tell the eye where there is form by doing some hatching. One of the last things I do on these, on the Bookbug stuff, is these threads, which are essentially just holding everything together, the pages together, holding the books to the pages. Hey, Ben, how's it going? Thank you. I appreciate it. Since I'm going to be inking and coloring, it's something I'm thinking about at this phase too, or at least I try to. I'm not always thinking about it, but having an idea at least is always a good idea. Having an idea of what you want is good because then you can either lean into more inking, less. Sometimes it's best for the colors to do certain things. Sometimes it's best for the inks to do things. So at this stage, I can make those decisions. He's looking pretty good. Oh, cool, Ben, doing some ink or coloring. Yeah, I caught a bit of your coloring the other day. That's actually, coloring is fun to watch. I don't know about my coloring since mine's a lot of frustration. But, yeah, that was really nice to just to watch some of your coloring. Giving a piece of artwork that last pop for the coloring, it's really satisfying to watch. I guess it's this along the same lines of whenever you ink a penciled drawing and the inks just pop, and then you take it into coloring, and then the coloring makes the ink pop. So the left side of his face got a little too junky. I'm gonna knock it down a little bit. They always say every portrait is a self-portrait. So every time I do a character, including the villain, I'm wondering, I'm like, what part of this character is the self-portrait? Is it the eye bags of disappointment on the Bookbug? The road weary attitude. Diana, do you work on other comics? I actually don't. This is my comic, and I spend every last hour of waking hour on it. So I don't really have time to work on other comics for other people. As far as myself, potentially in the future, I have some other ideas I would like to do, but right now it is definitely Horace H. Hoover. All right, so we have finished up this guy. Got the Bookbug here. So I think we need to put a little bit of wear and tear on the book, a little bit of tertiary detail on this. I'll go back and actually do the writing on the close, so to speak. I'll do that at the end. That way, what I'll do is I'll grab a book or or something with symbols and language. That way I have something to reference sometimes to intersperse it with the made up stuff. There's nothing better than old books. I don't know if anybody's ever been to the Voynich in New Haven, which is just this incredible rare book and manuscripts museum. Absolutely incredible. They have like a Gutenberg Bible. They had the Voynich manuscripts there. So if anybody knows anything about the Voynich manuscripts, it's really cool. It's an old book. I'm going to get all of this wrong, but hundreds of years, people have been trying to crack the code of this manuscript. People claim they do it, and that never happens. There's like illustrations of botanical stuff. It's very odd. But yeah, they've yet to crack the code on this manuscript. Then definitely each phase just adds something new to the art. Yeah, it's very satisfying. Last month I was flatting a Justice League comic. Wow, that's awesome. The Justice League. Holy cow. I've never done anything for the Justice League. That's awesome. I don't think anybody would want me doing anything with the Justice League. Rita, can we have a talk? Sure. What's up? Why does Batman talk funny and use big words? Why does Nightwing wear a giant helmet? You know what? I'm going to rule the panel borders a little bit, because sometimes that helps. When you get so far in a panel, you really need to see the borders a little better. So that's also why I liked your comic. I like hero comics, or that there's blood action. Thank you. I appreciate that. Why does Alfred have a vacuum cleaner set? Exactly. Oh, John, you have a copy of the Voynich Manuscript. I love that kind of stuff. It's interesting. You may see references then from things from the Voynich Manuscripts in the book. I'm trying to think. Well, I don't want to tell you where it's at. I have to track it down, but those are things I reference all the time for symbols and language and things like that. It's funny because, whenever you have these characters, fictional characters, I'm not thinking Sherlock Holmes, but like an occult detective, like a Constantine or something like that. And they amass these libraries of occult books. It's really fun. You love seeing that kind of stuff. And I started to buy some of these books because I actually need them for real reference. And like, wait a minute, why does my library like look like John Constantine's or something? So like you sort of become a little bit of the character that you're writing, which I think is kind of funny. Like I have Egyptian mythology and stuff like that just laying around now. Diane, I worked a few years ago on a rather bloody comic, but at the same time, it was black humor. That's definitely my wheelhouse. I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. I mean, gore for the sake of gore, not so much, but like dark humor, I love dark humor. John, I hate to ruin this for everybody, but Fabrizio's target audience is me, just me. I think you might be right, John. Hey, I'll take it if there's somebody out there that just loves these kind of things. Ben, you should conjure up a homunculus sweatshop and start churning out books monthly. Put those occult books to work for you. Now that's a fantastic idea. I do have a copy of the Necronomicon, some other stuff. Surely there's something in there that can help write these comic books and draw them. I guess the homunculus is a Jewish lore, from what I remember. Rabbi Lowe, is that right? Rabbi Lowe? It's been a while since I read up on the homunculus. So this is a good example of I kind of lost track of where the light is for the character. So if I have to track all the way back, it's on the left. So it's top left, yeah. Well, I guess I had it there, but erased it. It's so important. I guess a smarter person would remember, but so all the shadows end up being on the right side. So this is a very sort of stern piece of dialogue from this giant. So I really want to get a lot of black in here just to kind of show the gravity of it. He's not happy. Also crazy eyebrows, though. Diana, it was about a shark that lived on land like a bear, and there was a bear that lived in the water. They both killed people. That is interesting. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. yeah, if you ever want to like really gin up the drama, high contrast, give the monster like those, or person, they're like those John Buscema bad guy. Actually, not even bad guy. Like the Conan eyes are just like the best. I'm going to kill you eyes. The Golem is a Jewish lore. I think Hermes Trismegistu the homunculus. Oh, that's right. The Golem. I forgot about that. Wow, it's 9 o'clock already. That actually went pretty fast. Yeah, so I'll be streaming for like an hour in the evenings, or chatting with people, doing interviews a little bit every night. This was really good though. I felt like I got a lot of work done. Hopefully, anybody that's interested in sequential art, they got a little something out of this too. And you get a little sneak peek of some Horace H. Hoover stuff without spoiling, I think. Yeah, with a close-up shot like this, you really gotta up the detail as well. Because if not, these lines will just essentially they'll lay on like one plane instead of, again, the actually moving around form. There's a lot of comic books and artists that things look flat because they don't really have their lines go around form. They just kind of lay there. Alrighty. Let's see. Diana, you can search this comic. The name is Grizzly Shark. I like the very straight to the point name, Grizzly Shark. I mean, you're not going to confuse it with anything else. Blue Teddy Narrations, how's it going? I was just taking like a little mini break. Was thinking about stopping, but maybe I'll do one more panel. What else do I have to do except watch the Jersey Shore? Wait, did I say that? No, not the Jersey Shore. I meant the modern documentary of the Italian people's plight. So what I did for this panel is, so we have a close-up of Bookbug. We have kind of an establishing shot with this giant and the Bookbug. Then we have, you can't see it yet, we have Horace, and then we have kind of another establishing shot, but what this does is it establishes the location of Horace and the Bookbug. Also size, keeping that in mind. You want to make sure that once a page, once every 2 pages, you really spend a little time on orienting the reader to like the space that they're actually in. If they're in a living room and the fireplace is on the right, you really need to keep track of that the entire time, because if not, it'll get very, very confusing. Just looked up grizzly shark. Holy cow, it's an awesome looking book. Damn it, now I have to do it. That's a great name. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little jealous. I've never heard of it. That's awesome though. Thank you, Diana. I appreciate it. It is a style that just kind of evolves. I know people talk about, you know, your style will just appear one day, and that's, you hate hearing that. I'm not gonna lie. Like, someday you will be old enough to understand where babies come from. No, like someday your style just kind of appears and you recognize it. Again, it doesn't mean it stops evolving, but there's definitely a certain foundational way you draw that you start to recognize. And that's just, a lot of it's repetition, to be honest. I've drawn Horace many, many times now, so he's part of the style. You know, I draw gloves a certain way because I've drawn Horace's gloves, I don't know, hundreds of times at this point. So again, this is one of those tiny drawings that is really important to get right. And it's not about the detail at all. It's really about the gesture and the character. So Horace is kind of pleading with him. So I gotta get that right. The head tilt helps. But I'm gonna sort of extend his arms outward. Just like, sometimes you spend just as much time on these little drawings as you do on the big ones, as is evidenced by the sketch cards that I do. Ben, there's something Buscema and Kubert-esque in your penciling style. You're a fantastic draftsman. Thank you. Man, that is high praise for me. I mean, that's what I definitely strive for. Even when I fall short, at least that's what I'm going for. With a little bit of Fabrizio in there, which I think, for me, is years of just illustration, pen and ink, like more detailed stuff. So I think my style really is a combination of those things. So Horace, I think we have his sort of character down. So we don't need to go too far into the detail because this is going to be a tiny little drawing. Like once this is shrunk down for the final page, it's going to be, I don't know. So if that's like, say, 1.5 inches, it's going to be like 3/4 of an inch. So that definitely works for Horace. We have the Bookbug here, and he's contemplating. So again, the light source, want to make sure it's consistent. So from the right, yep, top right here. I want to ask you something. What I worked on, Horace, when you publish it, can I upload some pages as a portfolio? Sure. As a flatter, I mean, you did a great job. So yeah. As long as as long as you put that you were flatting and I did the coloring, but yeah, you did a great job flatting. I would say one of the best artists that can do tiny drawings that I've ever seen is Silvestri's X-Men stuff. If you look, he does like small drawings all over the place. It's incredible. It's mostly out of necessity because there's a lot of characters he was juggling, and I get that, but he was excellent at doing tiny little characters. I don't think I ever saw him do that stuff again after the X-Men run, but man, I pull those out once in a while and just marvel at the gesture and the character of those tiny little drawings. So this looks pretty good, but I'm going to double check. So what I do is I'll take a photograph. I know everybody knows this trick, but I still use it. So I'll take a photo of that little panel because I'm not 100% sold on him. So I'll take a photo, flip it, make sure that it still looks good. So when you flip it, I'm not 100% sold on it. Metatron's Cube. He did that Cyberforce too. Oh yeah, man, it's been so long since I looked at those. I'll have to look at them again. I know he's recently done the Batman stuff, the Deadly Duo. I just have the first issue. I haven't had a chance to pick up the other ones. Obviously, a very different style to what he used to do. I'll talk to you later, John. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to call it quits in a little bit, like 15 minutes. All right, so that's better. His legs look a little. Looks like he's standing on the ground more before. Like his one leg was just a little off. His feet are more planted now. What helps that too is actually drawing some of the ground. Random rocks. Yeah, the thing about small drawings, not to harp on that, is it lets you do high panel counts, and you can just tell more of a story with those panel pages, those high panel pages. Now, back in the day, a long time ago, I mean, they used to essentially shortcut storytelling via the dialogue. You know, if especially for the Marvel method, if the artist came in and they're really not showing as much as the writer wanted, they're like, look at the way he jumped over that building, somersaulted, and caught the bad guy. And it would just be one panel of, you know, the end of that or something. But if you can do 10 panels in a page, you can show that whole thing. But if you're only doing 3 panels a page, it's going to take you an entire book just to get that scene done. So I consider small drawing to be really important. So Horace's leg is a little too straight as well. If you can avoid it, never draw straight things. Like if you look at, I mean, Kirby or Buscema, no, it's rare that people just stood straight up. Rare. They were always crouched over, right? Their head down, their fist out. I mean, 9 times out of 10, this is the position they were in, and there's a reason it works. It has drama to it. It has like direction, moving forward, as opposed to just standing there. Huge difference. Metatron's Cube. I stopped collecting his stuff when he did Darkness or whatever it was, but loved all his stuff previous to that. Yeah, man, that was a long time ago. I think I might have had a little bit of Darkness, but I honestly don't remember that. That's definitely when I sort of bailed on a lot of that stuff. I might have to come back to Horace. He's a little stiff. Blue Teddy. Oh, I don't think I've had the chance to commend you for the sheer amount of books in issue 2 yet. Well done. You're absolutely mad. Thank you. It was crazy. I don't know what I was thinking. I just kept thinking this would be really cool if, and then I started in it. I started to work on it, and I'm like, wow, what did I get myself into? The end result was really satisfying, but getting there was really tough, really, really tough. Thing is, the Bookbug, you know, we haven't seen the last of him. Those books, we'll be seeing more of those. Yeah, issue 2 was insane. That opening library shot. Thank you. Yeah, that was a little bit about. Actually, let me pull that out. Think about that library shot. Was so I'm pretty good at architectural rendering, like accurate architectural rendering stuff. So what I'll do a lot of times is I'll start with a very accurate architectural rendering and see how it looks. And for this, if you did this 100% accurately, it doesn't look right. The way these curved in sort of accurate perspective, they curved way too far out, and it really distorted things on the edges. So what I had to do is I started with a very highly accurate rendering, and then I had to essentially eyeball these curves so they looked right. Because sometimes correct and right are two very different things. I know that sounds kind of weird, but correct isn't always the best looking result, especially for comics. You know, if everything you drew was highly realistic, it kind of sucks the life out of it sometimes. But yeah, it was pretty wild. All right, so I'm going to leave Horace and probably come back to him. So this panel, I'm just going to let that sit, come back to it, see what it looks like. I'm going to work on this horse. Speaking of not standing up straight, this is a perfect example of it. It's really, really rare that you would want a character just to stand up. You really want to put drama sort of into the pose as much as possible. Granted, you know, there's situations you don't want your characters at a funeral that are all crouched over like a Kirby hero. But if two people are having a conversation, you generally want to have some sort of drama in the poses. Even if it's over the top, it generally works better than static or stiff. So I always try to err on the side of over the top. Now, granted, Horace is sort of he's kind of a hammy character, so it's okay. You know, granted, there are situations and there are types of books where that might not be the case, but at least in the world of Horace, you really want to try the dramatic version of every pose. I like putting the fold in Horace's pants, the crease down the front. First, it was just functional, but now I really think of it as a plane change, which really helps describe the leg, as opposed to a cylinder. With a cylinder, you need to essentially shade it. So if you have a cylinder like this, in order to get like the round shape of it, you need to do a gradient like that or something else. But if you have a leg like this and you have a line, it kind of implies, and I'll do it with coloring too, that these are two plane changes here. Metatron's cube. It's a look, yeah. Yep. I'm a big fan of it. I always think of Rick Leonardi, his non-superhero stuff, just like people talking, are so dramatic. It might be over the top, but it's intense. And you can wrinkle just the line to imply folds. Yeah. Yep. Blue Teddy. Oh yeah, that is true. That is a useful fold. Not really a fold you see often in newer men's pants, though. Yeah, I'm lucky. This is set back in the day. I definitely have different things to play with. I don't know how I would do with modern clothing. It'd be interesting. Yep. Alrighty, I think about done here. Alrighty. I think it's good for the day. We have roughly half the page done, right? And it's been an hour and a half. I think I can finish out the rest of this probably in another hour and a half. So that's actually that's not bad for a page. Generally, it takes me, I mean, I roughed out this earlier, so it probably takes 6-7 hours a page for me, depending whether or not there's 1,000 books in it. But if we're just looking at characters with not, architectural backgrounds like rocks and stuff like that, it's a lot easier to do. Thanks, Ben. I appreciate that. Yeah, this was fun. Thanks everybody for joining. I'll be doing these more often. Any questions, comments, let me know. And I'll catch you on social. Thanks again, everybody. See ya.